Greetings, citizens. Hey you beautiful creepy little human being, you. Welcome to my channel and welcome to today's morbid makeup video. I'm so happy we could meet like this. I'm so happy that somehow in all of this craziness today, you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or BRATTERSTEIN, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be discussing the murder of Monika Ghurde, India's First Lady of Smell. But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell, because I put out a new morbid makeup video every single week and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you specifically, you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. One of us. One of us. One of us. And you can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you want. They're both BRATTERSTEIN, but no pressure. So, guess what, guys? Today's video is freaking sponsored. I know, it's crazy. I don't know what I did. I must have done something good in a past life to have so many wonderful things happening to me and for some brands to recognize little old me and want to hang out. So today's video is sponsored by Dossier. Are you familiar? If not, you're about to get familiar. So Dossier is a perfume company that makes luxury scents at a fraction of the price, where most perfumes can cost from anywhere from $50 to like hundreds of dollars. And I can attest to this because my favorite perfume of all time costs $80. And in the current economy, that's just a little rich for my blood these days. So who comes in to save the day? That would be Dossier. Dossier's perfumes range anywhere from $29 to $49, which is a lot less than a lot of luxury perfumes cost. And they do bulk deals, so if you buy like 3 bottles, you can get a percentage off. I believe it's like 25% off and you get free shipping. So that's like a pretty good deal. And for those of us that are trying to save money without sacrificing quality, it's perfect. Right, Bows? Right, Bows? Right, Bows. So I got 2 bottles. The first one I got here is Floriental Almond. And this scent is inspired by Carolina Herrera's Good Girl perfume, but the Good Girl perfume costs $98, where this one is $29. Oh, it smells good. The second one I got is Floral Honeysuckle, which is inspired by Gucci Bloom, and Gucci Bloom costs $105. I'm sorry, but who do they think we are? A. B. Gucci perfumes are not cruelty-free, whereas Dossier perfumes are, which is incredibly important to me. If you do not know, I'm a cruelty-free cosmetic user. All of my makeup that I use is cruelty-free. So to be able to get the scent, which smells, oh my god, amazing, and not have to sacrifice the well-being of sweet little baby creatures is always a plus to me. Man, I like them both so much, but if I had to pick my favorite, I think I'd have to go with Floral Honeysuckle. It's just like so good. But you know what? It only wins by like this much because they both smell so good. Anyways, Dossier is offering members of the Brat Pack 10% off their order of their new favorite perfume if you use the code BRATTERSTEIN at checkout. And I mean, they're already so cheap, so I would take advantage of this deal because like smelling good is living good, okay? Who likes to hug a smelly person? Nobody, but who needs hugs? All of us, all the time. I'm sure that we do right now these days. You know what I mean? So make sure to click the link down below and use the code BRATTERSTEIN at checkout to get 10% off of your new favorite perfume today. Just want to say a big thank you to Dossier for wanting to like hang out with me today and believing in my channel. And of course, thank you to all of you guys for being supportive of all the good things that happened to me, because let me just tell you, YouTube hates true crime and me specifically. And now, let's get into the case. So I came across this case recently and I was really surprised to find that, one, I had never heard of Monika before, which is a bummer because she seemed like a pretty nice person. She was pretty important where she was from, and I just feel like her case should have gotten a little more coverage. And when I started looking into her case, I found that it was very underreported, especially in English-speaking videos. And this case takes place in India, and India does have a pretty large English-speaking population, so I was a little bit surprised to see that there was kind of a gap there that I am now going to try to fill. And in addition to that, Monika was a pretty successful, relatively famous woman, and absolutely beautiful, and typically those are the types of cases that tend to get more attention. It might be a effed up thing to say, but it's a truth in media that I think we can all recognize, that there are certain people that tend to get more recognition than others, unfortunately. So with that said, I was surprised to see that there wasn't more coverage on her, and as I looked into her, I felt compelled to literally read every single thing that I could find online about her, because Monika just seemed like a truly beautiful human being, not just physically, but on a deep, like true soul level. And it's just absolutely horrifying what happened to her. With that said, I'm going to tell you all the details of what did happen to her, and while I do, I'm going to be putting on a full face of makeup. If that's not really your thing, thanks for hanging out this long, I understand. I hope you find somebody who's more your speed, but if you're on the fence and you're kind of like, I don't know, that sounds a little weird, maybe stick around. You might be surprised by how much you like me. So with all of that said, come gather around and let me tell you the story of the murder of Monika Ghurde, the First Lady of Smell. On October 5th, 2016, 39-year-old Monika Ghurde, photographer turned perfume specialist, was murdered in her apartment that she rented in Sangolda village, Goa, which is in India, by Rajkumar Singh, a man who worked as a security guard and forced himself into Monika's home. There isn't a ton of information on Monika's younger years. I know that she was born in Nagpur, India, which is about a day's drive away from where she would have sadly been killed 39 years later in Goa, India, and she moved to Goa in 2011. I know that she had been married at least once, and her ex-husband was a famous photographer, and the two met while she worked as a photographer prior to her career as a perfume specialist, but the two had been separated about a year when Monika died. I know that as far as family goes, she had at least one brother, and her mom and dad were both still alive at the time that she died. And when her body was found, it was her brother and her ex-husband that were called and notified of her passing. I would like to quickly hop in here and just say, I would like to preface this with, I'm doing my absolute best with pronunciations. I know I'm gonna get something wrong. It's not my strong suit, but I'm gonna do my damnedest to get it right, okay? I did read a absolutely beautifully written article about Monika that was written by a friend of hers, a girl named Deepti Kapoor. And this article basically tells who Monika was as a person and not just a murder victim, but it does come from her point of view and the version of Monika that she knew in her life. But I do want to tell you a little bit about who Monika was to her friends. Monika was a beautiful woman who loved life and understood and recognized the beauty and all that it entailed. She was perceptive and creative, and she was just a light in this world that was easy to love. She was the type of person who was affected by all things, even those that did not apply to her. When someone died, whether she knew them or not, she cried. She had pet cats, and one of them she had even saved from a trash can and still thought the cat was the most beautiful thing she had seen in this world. She was the type of woman who would take notice to flowers outside that were hit by the light just right. And she was the type of person to not just quickly drink her coffee, but to totally consume a good cup of coffee with a croissant on the side. She was a great friend, and she actually valued and nurtured friendships instead of just letting them exist around her and hoping that they would water themselves to stay sustained and grow. And I honestly, like, oh God, this woman who wrote this article, beautifully written, and I feel just from reading that I would have really liked Monika. I feel like that resonates with me a lot. Monika started her working career as a photographer, and she was very good at that and had made a good living doing that, but soon she discovered the art and her real passion, which was perfumery, and she was really good at it. Her brother even described her as a sniffer dog from when they were kids. Like, she always had just an incredibly good sense of smell. She was the type of person that anytime you handed her something, she had to smell it. And I feel like we've all like known a person like that. I know I've definitely known a person like that you like hand them like a chapstick and they're like, and then put it on. She was that type of person. And at first she thought that she could balance both jobs. She was going to try to do photography and perfumery at the same time. But she soon realized that they were both the types of careers that needed all of your attention. So she decided to go with the passion project, which was perfumery, and she did very well at it. She ended up being one of India's leading young perfumers, and she was known as the First Lady of Smell. She ended up working as a perfume researcher initially and specialized at MO Lab after training in Thailand and Paris. She created different perfumes and ran workshops with kids to teach them about scents. She said that kids were good with that because they were unbiased, because the scents did not have a chance to be associated with a negative memory. I found the whole thing to be really interesting when I was reading about it. I had never really known that workshops like that exist, but she was trying to teach kids to have a good relationship with scent and teach them how scent memory works. And she also ran workshops for adults where she would teach them how certain scent triggers would affect the way they made decisions in their lives as well. So now that we've talked about Monika a little bit, let's talk about the man who killed her and how he came to be in her life. So 21-year-old Rajkumar Singh ended up in Goa, which is where Monika lived. And Goa is a beach city located on the southwest edge of India. And he ended up in this little town, in this little area, looking for work. And he did end up finding work as a security guard at an apartment complex. The same apartment complex that Monika would end up living at. And Rajkumar had just started working there when Monika moved in. I think I read that he had only been on the job at that apartment complex for maybe like a month or two when she moved in. So the first time that Rajkumar saw Monika was in June of 2016 when she came to the apartment looking to see if there were any rentals available. And immediately he was just like very, very into her from the first time he saw her. I mean, who wouldn't be? She was very, very beautiful. And I'm sure he was just incredibly stoked when he saw that she was actually going to be moving in. After she moved in, he started to see her all the time in the common areas of the apartment, you know, coming and going from work, whatever. And he actually had like a job that he did after he was done doing the security guard thing, and that's that he would like sit in the parking lot and he would wash people's cars for them. And of these people who would come and get their car washed was Monika. So Rajkumar started to like Monika. It started as any, you know, normal thing would. It started as a casual crush, nothing too worrisome, but it changed from just a cute little like guy that liked a girl to something more worrisome when he started to follow her around. He started to track her movements. He started to keep track of who came and who went from her apartment. He started to see that she was often alone, and because he was a security guard at this apartment complex, he knew the layout of her apartment. So when Rajkumar's obsession turned to rage is unclear in my eyes. I did see in many articles that it's thought that it started because he okay, so what happened is he stole an umbrella from Monika, okay? I couldn't find in the articles whether it was stolen off her person, whether he broke into her house and took it, or if he stole it out of her car. I sort of suspect that he stole it out of her car because, you know, you bring your car to get washed by somebody, you leave, you come back, it's just missing. That's my suspicion just based on the information at hand. Also because the umbrella was found in his possession, so it wasn't a lie. And it was reported that other tenants were reporting that things were missing also. I guess he could have been breaking into everyone's apartments, but I kind of think it was the car washing thing. But either way, Monika reported this to management because, like, what the hell? That's her umbrella. And in response, management did fire him in July of 2016. And from that point on, people believe that his rage started to fester. And I think it's a good chance that that is true. But I think that I kind of feel like he wanted any excuse because he was already sort of obsessed with her at this point. Just waiting for a reason to be a piece of shit. So things got even worse and he got even more upset because the management company, the people who had hired him, refused to give him 2 months' salary. Apparently they were holding 22,000 Rs, which is Indian rupee. Let me know if that's how it's pronounced, but that basically translates into about $300 US if you're from the US. And honestly, this would irritate anyone, and he had tried looking for additional employment. He tried to look for labor work elsewhere, like in Ponda Town, which is about 40 minutes away from Goa, and also in Pune, which is about 8 hours away, Chennai, which is 16 hours away, Hyderabad, 14 hours away, and Mumbai, which is 10 hours away. So he was looking all over for work, but he was finding that it was completely unsuccessful, so he was really hard up for money. So broke, stressed, driving all over the place, unable to find work and money, he actually contacted Monika and he was like, listen, tell the security agency to give me my money. And she was just kind of like, bro, this is so absolutely not my problem, figure it out, and just kind of like blew him off. So Rajkumar heads back to Goa, and once he arrives, he goes to the apartment building where he was fired, and he enters through the front gate undetected. Nobody saw him come in. He goes back to Monika's, like her portion of the building, and he goes to her door and he realizes that he can't come in, like he can't get in. This was on October 3rd, 2016, and he's like, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be a total creep, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna climb up on the building's balcony and I'm gonna hang out there and I'm gonna wait for my opportunity. He stayed there and he camped out waiting for a chance to move forward with his plan for 2 days. He finally got his chance At about 6:30 p.m. on October 5th, 2016, he forced himself in by holding a knife to her. So what he did is he had actually knocked on her door when he saw her enter, and he lied about who he was to get her to open the door. And once she opened the door, he had the knife and he forced himself in. And Monika, recognizing him, started to scream, obviously, and they started to fight. But he was able to overpower her, and he drug her into the bathroom where he gagged her, and he kept her gagged for like 5 minutes before she finally went unconscious. And once she was unconscious, he tied her to her own bed. And we know that that never bodes well. But before he did anything to Monika, this asshole dude, he went to her kitchen and he made himself a couple of eggs. He straight up went in there and made himself a little meal. And I understand, he had been on the balcony for 2 days and he was probably hungry. But something about that irritates me. It always does, because it's so, like, you're already being so violating, and this just seems like such a casual thing to do in the home of somebody that you are horrifying and assaulting, essentially. That's just my 2 cents on that. Once she was awake, he then started to scream at her, asking why she had complained about him to management, forcing him to lose his job and his money and his income. And I'm sure she was just horrified. This would be a terrifying experience. You're tied to a bed. This guy is just screaming at you, and she, you know, apologized. She offered him money. She even taught him how to use her ATM card so that he could take her money because he didn't know how to use one. He then proceeded to repeatedly sexually assault her, and during the sexual assault, between acts, he would make her watch porn with him. She was screaming and she was crying and she was begging for her life, but somehow during this whole 8 hours of repeated assaults, none of her neighbors heard anything. She begged for her life, she pleaded, she offered him chocolates, she said she would give him a job, she would keep him on as her own personal security guard or her driver, but he didn't believe her. It's not clear exactly when he decided he was going to kill Monika, but he told police that he was afraid that she was going to call the police. With that said, sometime between 2 and 2:30 a.m., he murdered Monika by pressing down on her neck and face with a pillow until she was dead, but not before getting her ATM cards, getting her to give him her PIN, and unlocking her cell phone. Which, man, is just so terrible, but taking these things is actually what ends up helping him get caught later, so. This is horrible, but according to Raj Kumar, after he smothered her, he thought she was still alive. He thought he had just knocked her out, not that he had killed her. So he proceeded to undress her completely and film her and take photos of her in compromising positions so that he could later blackmail her in case she ever did go to police. So yeah, he says that he took these videos and photos to put on the internet to blackmail her, because he's just all around a horrible person. I mean, I think we can agree on that. So anyways, before he left her apartment, he showered, he shaved, and he put on some of Monika's brother's clothes and headed on his way. Monika's body was discovered in her home, half naked, tied to her own bed with bruises all over her neck and bite marks on her body. Her cause of death was labeled asphyxiation, and the whole reason her body ended up even being discovered is because her housekeeper had shown up, and when she knocked on the door she couldn't get in, so she went to a neighbor's house, and this neighbor had a key to Monika's apartment, and when they opened the door, this is when they found her with her hands tied to the bed. Police immediately thought this was a more personal attack because of the condition of Monika's apartment. It was not ransacked, there was no items missing, she was just murdered and then the person left. Raj Kumar ended up being caught by police only 3 days later. He was caught while staying at a hotel in Bengaluru, 10 hours away from where the crime had been committed. They were able to track him through purchases and withdrawals he had made with Monika's ATM cards because he left a dumb little breadcrumb trail from her house straight to the hotel. He was even caught on CCTV footage trying to pull money out of an ATM right by Monika's house. He even took a selfie of himself with Monika's cell phone okay, and posted it to Facebook. And this photo that he took was taken right in front of the hotel he was staying at in Bengaluru. Once he was arrested, he admitted to everything right away. He admitted to breaking into her house, he admitted to tying her to bed, he admitted to torturing her, he admitted to raping her, and he admitted to killing her. His only real concern was for his own family, and he said of this, and I'm going to loosely quote here because it was in Hindi, "Whatever happens, I'm willing to face everything. But please make sure that my family members do not get to know what I have done. It will only create more problems for them." And again, this is a quote from him that was translated in an article, but it was originally said in Hindi, so that's the best that I can do here. I'm so sorry. He was charged with robbery, rape, and murder, and he has since reportedly been evaluated by a mental health professional and has been deemed mentally sane and fit to stand trial. The trial began in 2019, over 2 years after Monika's murder. I couldn't find the exact date. There is literally only one article I could find written in English that says anything about the trial at all. The only article I could find was written in mid-January of 2019, and it says, and I quote, "The trial in the infamous murder case of photographer and perfumer Monika Ghurde commenced recently." So that's pretty vague. And sadly, that's literally it. That's all we have. There has been no articles written about this case that I could find since 2019. And I know that trials can take a while, and I don't know if things are different in India, but there is no update that I could find since 2019. We are literally just left with this open-ended case, and I hate to do that to you because I want to know what happened. I want to know if he was found guilty. I want to know how much time he was given, but there's literally nothing else out there. But I still felt that Monika's story was worth telling, so I don't know if maybe they just don't report on that stuff once somebody's found guilty in India. If I have any subscribers from India, which I know that I do, I can see my analytics. If you can let us know if there's any update or something that I'm just not finding, because I would love to know, and I'm sure everyone who's watching this video would love to know and love to see Monika get justice. What happened to her is just so horrible. Can you even imagine being in that situation? The complete terror that you must have felt in that moment? Like, fuck, that's so messed up. I cannot imagine somebody breaking into my home, rendering me unconscious, tying me naked to my own bed and assaulting me, and making me watch porn with him whilst he's, like, who does that? It's just so fucked, and all over a lost job that he didn't even have that long. Like, I know money's important, but I feel like there was probably an inherent darkness already inside of him, because to do something like that and to stay in her apartment for hours after camping outside for days, and to hear her pleas and her kindness, offering him chocolate, offering him a job, and still just doing this, that shit freaks me out. That people can be so heartless and so unempathetic. But sadly, we know that some people are just fucking evil, so. But anyways, guys, that completes this video. I hope that you found it interesting and informative, and that it gave you all the information you would want when looking into Monika's case. I have a feeling a lot of people won't have heard of this one, will not have heard of this one previously, so I'm happy to be able to bring it to you. And thank you for just remembering Monika with me today, because she sounded like a beautiful person, and her story just deserves to be told. She deserves to be remembered. What she went through is horrifying, and I can't even imagine it. But we can remember her today and who she was, and I don't know, man, it's just really messed up. Of course, please remember to leave me any cases you would like to see me cover down below, because as you know, I have a long list of cases, but every time you leave one, I add it to the list with your name next to it to give you a shout out, because I know you're filled with good taste and good ideas. Otherwise, you would not be here. If you haven't already, don't forget to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell, because I put out a new Morbid makeup video every single week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you specifically, you. And if you want to hang out more consistently, you can follow me on any social media you want to. It's all listed down below, along with like the makeup I use, the nail polish, the earrings, all of that is down there for your convenience. Of course, I want to thank Dossier one more time for wanting to hang out and work with me today. That's so, so dope. Thank you for, you know, seeing a small channel, believing in it, and choosing to reach out to me. I think that that is so dope. And now, I smell so good. And with all of that said, I just want to thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else in the world. That is tight. You are tight. Please stay safe and be a better person than you were yesterday. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.